We begin in West Africa, where the ECOWAS Authority heads of state and government has lifted sanctions on the 3 member states of Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, following appeals by former presidents of the Commission, including key stakeholders, which have urged the Commission to resort to dialogue. This followed a meeting by the ECOWAS Authority heads of state and government, which met in Abuja to review ongoing situation affecting the sub-region. Amadine Uyi reports.
The meeting was called at the instance of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the ECOWAS regional bloc. The meeting had in attendance 8 heads of ECOWAS member states, while 3 others sent high-level representatives.
This extraordinary summit was convened at a critical juncture that demands our focused attention on regional issues.
The meeting then went into a closed-door session for several hours. After an extensive deliberation by the ECOWAS Authority heads of state and government, the ECOWAS Commission says it is lifting of sanctions which have been meted on Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. The president of the Commission says that he hopes that these countries will constructively engage with ECOWAS to resolve all issues affecting the bloc.
The authority has resolved to lift with immediate effect the following measures imposed on the Republic of Niger. A, closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger to be lifted. No-fly zone of all commercial flights to and from Niger is to be lifted. Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between ECOWAS member states and Niger is to be lifted. Freezing of all service transactions, including utility services, is to be lifted. Freezing of assets of the Republic of Niger in ECOWAS central banks is to be lifted. Freezing of assets of Niger state and the state enterprises and parastatals in commercial banks is to be lifted. Suspension of Niger from all financial assistance and transactions with all financial institutions, particularly EBRD and BRID, is to be lifted. Travel ban on the government officials and their family members is also to be lifted.
The ECOWAS Commission, however, urged the government of Niger to ensure the speedy release of its detained president, Mohamed Bazoum. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
And now to politics. Ahead of the September 21 Edo State governorship election in southern Nigeria, the factional candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Philip Shaibu, has vowed to carry on with his preparations, even if doing so would cause his impeachment by the State House of Assembly. Shaibu, the deputy governor of the state, said this at a press conference in Abuja on Saturday. On Thursday, the returning officer in the PDP governorship primary and governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, announced Asue Igodalo as the winner of the delegate election, having polled a total of 577 votes. However, in the parallel primaries that took place at the Benin residence of the deputy governor, the returning officer Bartholomew Moses declared Shaibu the winner, saying he won with over 300 votes. In the meantime, the Edo State governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Monday Okpebolo, received his certificate of return from the leadership of the ruling party on Saturday. Okpebolo beat Dennis Idahosa and 10 other aspirants last Thursday to emerge the party's candidate in the forthcoming governorship election. The president's presentation of certificate comes in the wake of protests and threats of litigation by Idahosa, who claimed the rerun poll was a sham deliberately arranged by the National Working Committee to favor the winner. The certificate was presented at the National Secretariat of the party in Abuja by the National Chairman, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, who was accompanied by the National Secretary, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, and some NWC members. Reactions have continued to trail the planned release of 42,000 metric tons of grains nationwide by the Nigerian government. The presidency had on Friday said the 42,000 metric tons of grains it promised for nationwide release 2 weeks ago are being bagged for distribution. It said the remaining 60,000 metric tons of grains will be purchased from the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria. As a temporary response to the nation's growing food crisis and the rising price of commodities, President Bola Tinubu on February 8th ordered the immediate release of 102,000 metric tons of various grain types from the Strategic Reserve and the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria. Now, deliberations began in earnest after angry youths and women took to the streets of Minna, the Niger state capital, and Kano to protest what they described as the rising cost of living in the country. Similar protests also erupted in Ondo State, Nigeria's southwest. Now, to discuss this, I'm joined by the National Public Relations Officer, National Youth Council of Nigeria, Dotun Omoleye. Hello, Dotun. Good morning, and thank you for joining me on the news.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So let's have your take or your opinion on the current food shortage crisis and also the continuous surge in prices of goods across the country.
Yeah, thank you so much. The increase in fuel, food commodities across the country, is as a result, or was as a result of the inability of people, to have the cash, to actually purchase the food. In some areas, if you look at it critically, you understand that the foods and the commodities are actually available, but some individuals or some persons, does not have the cash, to purchase these commodities because of the increments, in the prices. And if you look at the level of increments, some are even like 40% increase, or some like 30%, which makes it difficult, for the expected buyer, going into the market and unable to purchase these various types of food commodities. So the government needs to do more, and it goes beyond just releasing grains into the circulation, giving people in a form of succor. It goes beyond, because what the federal government is actually planning to do is just a temporary measure, to cushion the effect of the food scarcity / price increment.
All right, so some economic analysts have actually suggested or said that Nigeria is actually going through hyperinflation, especially when it comes to food inflation. What would you say have been the major factors? You did mention, fuel subsidy removal, but what about the other major factors behind this recent development that Nigerians have actually found themselves in?
Looking at the Nigerian economy, which is being dictated by the forex, and it goes beyond just Nigeria as a country alone. If you look at it presently in the UK, even in some other Western countries, there are also inflation in all parts of the economy. So I think the Nigerian government just have to look inward, to provide lasting solutions to the unstable forex within the country, because it affects virtually all sectors of the economy, from importation to distribution to every sector. And most of our foods, are largely being imported, except for a very few of them. And when you look at the importation fee and the rates, it's being affected by all these measures, all these figures that are being these indices. So the government just needs to do more by increasing our local production, which we actually, help the economy by consuming more of by producing more of what we consume, rather than importing more of what we consume.
Okay,
improving the economy, investing more in local production, which is very, very essential.
All right, Dotun, just before we let you go, still on the distribution of, the government releasing 42,000 metric tons of various commodities of food to support the vulnerable population. How do you think, the government should actually ensure accountability and transparency when it comes to this disbursements?
Yeah, to be honest with you, we have 774 local governments area in this country. We have 36 states, including FCT, making it 37. I think the federal government, if truly this project is that of federal government, they should deal directly with the local government chairman. Then whatever is going to go to the states. I mean, the local government makes up the entire structure of the country, and there is no state in this country that does not have at least 16 or 11 or 12 local governments. So I think the federal government should deal directly, because most of these governors, in most cases, politicize this distribution of palliatives. If you could remember, late last year, about 5 billion naira worth of materials was also released to different states. But today, nobody's even talking about the impact of such a measure. So I think what's worth doing is actually worth doing well. And if the government, especially the federal government, want this, palliative or this measure to get to the downtrodden, I think they have to deal directly with the people, and so that the effect of the impact of this measure can actually be felt by the people at the grassroots, because the government is just about the people, for the people, and by the people. So they just have to make sure this thing get across to the people at the grassroots.
All right, now talking about the people themselves, the plan is to identify, the so-called vulnerable population. But how do you think the government can actually really do that? Is it by going to the rural areas, by, collating data? Because we know such schemes in the past have actually proven to be a sham, where these palliatives never get to those who actually need them, or are even collected by people who actually have access to food and resold in the market to these poor people at a higher rate.
To be honest with you, in every locality, in every state, in every environment, people can actually identify, or people knows where the vulnerable people are actually residing. We have the IDP camps, we have the internally displaced persons, we have the community, we have the shanties, we have so many in every community. The kings, the traditional institutions, the stakeholders there, the Christian and the religious, the Muslim leaders, and every other stakeholders can actually tell you where the vulnerable resides. And I think this is where these items should go straight into. Yeah, there are people that can afford 3 square meal, there are people that can afford 2 square meal. This should go to people that don't even know what the next hour will bring to their table. I think that's the only way the federal government can make impact with this kind of initiative, so that it won't just look as if they are doing the same thing and again without anything to show for it.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dotun, for joining me and speaking on this.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Mine. All right, moving away from that, Nigeria's federal government has called on the nation's organized labor unions to shelve a planned nationwide protest, saying it is not in the interest of citizens. Nigeria's Minister of State for Labor and Employment spoke to New Central Television in Abuja, saying government is working round the clock to ensure that agreements reached during the negotiations with labor are fully implemented. Marvelous Obomanu has the report.
The Nigerian Labour Congress, during a recent press conference, accused the federal government of foot dragging in its implementation of agreements reached in the light of the removal of fuel subsidy in the country. While the labor unions had declared a 2-day protest to express their displeasure, some Nigerians say this will not be in the interest of the public.
The current government are not acting promptly to demands of the Labour Congress. Maybe that's why the Labour Congress are going on strike. They listen only when they are pushed to the wall. When there is no threat on them, they don't act.
I don't think it will favor us, because the people that will come and invest in Nigeria, there will be they will have a fear to come.
A chart with Nigeria's Minister of State for Labor and Employment details efforts being made to implement the agreements. The minister says the government is doing its best to implement the agreements, insisting that it has taken steps in addressing the issues raised by the organized labor as it affects the Nigerian worker.
Most of those agreements have been met. Number one, on the issue of payment of wage award of 35,000 naira, government has paid up to 4 months as of December, and we are processing the one for January. And I'm sure that that is being processed as we speak. With respect to the suspension of collection of value-added tax, the Minister of Finance confirmed that that one has been suspended. On the provision of CNG buses and conversion kits, government had committed 100 billion naira and it's in process. And from the last check, the contractor said that within few months that will be assembling those buses.
It is only fair that the Nigerian Labour Congress should give the government a benefit of that it will implement all the 15 points raised in the agreement and discontinue with their planned nationwide protest, as it will do the country no good. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, in an effort to relieve economic hardships faced by Nigerians, Borno State government has introduced installmental payment of tax. Now, this was announced by the executive chairman of the Borno Internal Revenue Service in Maiduguri while addressing newsmen. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
The economic hardship in Nigeria is glaring as individuals struggle to survive. Borno State government is not unmindful of this, as it announces steps to alleviate the burden on its citizens. This initiative will allow taxpayers to make installment payments rather than one lump sum amidst the economic downturn.
This model is a way of teaching people to accept taxation, which once they do, we are out of our dooms, because we will then have revenue ready being paid by individuals devoid of their position. It's not practiced anywhere, but it's part of the relief we have given to the taxpayer, realizing that we need tax in order to survive. We don't have anything in Borno. We have taxes to survive. And gladly for us, it is tax that all governments of the world are relying on.
The government emphasized that the new installment payment system will be facilitated through an online portal, making it convenient for taxpayers to fulfill their obligations.
For each type of tax, the remitter number is generated and printed on the demand notice you receive, so that when you want to pay, you pay it on your phone if you like, because there are barcodes there. You can scan them and immediately they take you to remitter page. You make the payment, link with your bank and make payment. And as the payment is made on the spot, you will receive text message on your phone.
The importance of tax reform is said to be the best option to relieve the burden on citizens and to support the state's development initiatives. He explained that the automation of the tax collection process is a vital step enforced by the government towards achieving efficiency and transparency.
As at this month, February 14th, we remitted 1.2, precisely around 1.13 something. Okay, 1.something billion in 14 days' time. I think going back along the trajectory of history in the organization, this is, not seen anywhere.
By implementing complete automation, the government aims to eliminate manual processes, reduce human error, and ensure fair and accurate tax collection. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has inaugurated members of the State Special Dispensation Palliative Advisory Committee. The governor had earlier released three-pronged intervention measures to mitigate economic hardship at a special media chart. He said the committee was to advise and put forward ideas to create an ecosystem that would be engaging and rewarding for residents. Sanwo-Olu is the chairman, while the deputy governor, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, is the alternate chairman of the committee. Other members of the committee are Imam Abdulaziz Onike, Chief Missioner NAFSAT, Sheyi Showumi, a Labour Party member House of Representatives, Mrs. Joe Oke Odumakin, Chairman of Conference 57, comprising Chairman of Local Governments and Local Council Development Area, Kolade Alabi, former Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Barrister Taufik Ganiyu, Dr. Sheena Fagbenro Byron, Labour Party member, former DFID official Ademola Shabi, member House of Representatives, and Comrade Biliaminu Oba, a youth representative. Mrs. Shola Salako Ajulo, consumer rights advocate, Pastor Gorman Akinlabi, a senior pastor, Elevation Church, and Mrs. Kike Lomo Bolarinwa, permanent secretary, Ministry of Local Government, as secretary of the committee. The process of obtaining the National Identification Number, that's NIN, for the first time or modifying the data has been trailed by hardship and frustration for Nigerians. Yesterday, the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, held a retreat to strategize on how to serve Nigerians better. Bettina Nweli reports.
The NIMC in January suspended third-party services as part of a broader revalidation exercise aimed at streamlining the enrollment process and addressing outstanding debts owed to these agents. The agency went on to suspend the front-end partners, FEPs, from participating in NIN enrollment. The CEO of NIMC, Abisoye Koka Udushote, has clarified that the move was not targeted at any specific group, but was essential for maintaining data integrity in the country's identity database.
The public, we listened to the public's outcry on some cases of extortion through the offices of the front-end partners. And that is one of the reasons why last year we had suspended them, to ensure that we go through the whole process again with them, make sure that whatever loopholes, which is basically the means to which they are basically extorting people, we're able to close those loopholes.
Giving Nigerians that assurance. It may take some time, but very minimal time. We are well aware of that. Some of the things that have happened in some of our centers are not things we should raise our head high about. But basically, we would raise our head high because we recognize the challenges we have internally and we are addressing them.
The need for many to also modify their data, such as date of birth, arrangement or misspelled names, or other forms of corrections, accounts for a significant percentage of the people congesting NIMC offices around the country. Similarly, many examination bodies, including the Joint Admission Matriculation Board, JAMB, have also made it compulsory for candidates to present their identity number for registration and identity validation purposes.
At the end of the day, we would like to see that all databases have been harmonized, and that gives us even more room for verification services to begin to take place. The system we're deploying is very tight. Now, there are also some other control measures in terms of physical monitoring of the FAP. The way we've worked it out this time is that each FAP is tied to a region, not in terms of operation now. Now, and even the mechanism we're employing is we're also employing the geofencing mechanism that enables us to know where each FAP is and what they are doing, besides the physical monitoring. Now that each FAP is going to be tied to an officer, tied to a territorial director, tied to a regional director, it's easier for that monitoring to ensure that extortion, if it's not completely eliminated, will be completely negligible.
You can use boxes, you can learn to improvise.
As Nigerians continue to grapple with the challenges of obtaining vital identity documents, the need for urgent reform and improved service delivery at NIMC offices across the country is increasingly evident. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Operatives of the Kano Zonal Command of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have arrested 11 suspected currency racketeers for allegedly selling new Naira notes. According to the statement on Saturday by the agency's head of media and publicity, Dele Oyewole, the suspects were arrested on Monday, February 19, 2024. This follows intelligence that unmasked a syndicate of fraudsters operating in Kano. 5 members of the syndicate were arrested with new Naira notes being sold to members of the public, while the other 6 reported to be bankers were arrested for selling the notes to the sellers on commission. The EFCC said all the 11 suspects will be arraigned in court soon when investigations are concluded. In a bid to improve access to quality health care for children and families affected by armed conflict in Borno State, UNICEF has handed over a newly built primary health care clinic at the Hajj Transit Camp in Konduga local government area. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Many families are facing immense challenges in accessing health care, particularly in the insurgency-ravaged Northeast, coupled with harsh economic realities. Hajj Transit Camp in Konduga local government area is where UNICEF has officially handed over a primary health care clinic to aid children and families affected by armed conflict. The clinic, valued at $179,000, aims to improve access to quality health care in the region.
It's not only the medical aspect they are supporting us with. Within this camp, we have temporary learning spaces, we have trauma centers, we have skill acquisition centers, the same thing we are doing at Bulonkutu.
We want to thank UNICEF for providing such facility and also for partnering with us at a time when Borno State needs real partners.
The newly built clinic will serve as a much-needed health facility for those living in the conflict-affected areas of Borno State, particularly the Hajj Transit Camp.
Alongside the clinic, we also provide the government of Borno the essential equipment and supplies, medical supplies, with the value of nearly $180,000. This is to make sure that we are able to provide the support needed to women and children and men who are affected by the armed conflict. We believe in the state of Borno, we believe in the children and women of Borno, and we want to make sure that they get the services required.
With essential medical supplies provided by UNICEF, healthcare workers here are prepared to deliver crucial services, including consultations, vaccinations, and pharmaceutical support.
Last year, we were able to vaccinate 55,000 children, and we will continue to partner with the government of Borno to make sure that all children and women and men in the state of Borno have the best health care possible, and that is in line with the 25-year development plan of the Borno state.
The initiative is also expected to ease the pressure on nearby health facilities that were struggling to provide adequate coverage of the area. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
The Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, responsible for setting professional standards and upholding ethics in the Nigerian banking industry, paid a courtesy visit to News Central on Friday, 23rd February. Perpetua Fasomi Peter was there and filed in this report.
Of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, led by Akin Morakinyo, the Registrar and Chief Executive, have commended News Central's contribution to public financial education and emphasized the importance of their partnership with the organization in advancing financial literacy across the country and beyond.
We see an opportunity, a gap, where we need to educate, to inform, and set agenda for people. I mean, that's the primary role of media, agenda setting. And so we see that opportunity partnering with you as we are talking. I see that opportunity to say, okay, fine. One of the things we want to do is mass education, public enlightenment. And we can work with you to reach the masses, especially beyond the shores of Nigeria.
Responding, News Central's managing director underscored the importance of fostering partnerships that benefit all parties, highlighting the current collaboration as an example.
The reason we're very, very emphatic about relationship is we're looking to grow with partners that like your own organization, so that by the time we're talking in terms of millions and millions and millions of numbers, then we are in a relationship, so it is not transactional. People you have relationship with, you stay with them, you stick with them.
That's right.
But those that are transactional, the day things begin to look up in a way, you tell them, oh, now we're big boys.
The meeting had several heads of departments in attendance.
Now, if we have a strong collaboration with you, it makes it easier for us to confirm, because as much as we love to create stories, we are more interested in being authentic, and having that actuality that once you hear it from News Central, you can go to court, you can go to the bank with it. So that's an area we will need your support and that collaboration to be strengthened.
So that collaboration and the partnership between News Central and your organization can be much deeper than just being a media partner. We can almost become like a full service 360 partnership in a family. So you do something, you move this way, we move together. And that's the kind of thing, as the MD has spoken, that we're very interested in.
In the grand scheme of creating content, if you're not on the cusp of what people are talking about, what's trending, and what people need and how it's affecting their lives, it's very difficult for them to then enjoy that content. And right now, we're looking at financial inclusion.
The visit between CIBN and News Central was more than just a courtesy call. It was a promise to champion financial literacy. With both organizations united in their mission, Nigerians and indeed viewers from around the world can expect insightful, accessible information to navigate the ever-evolving financial landscape. In Lagos, for News Central, Perpetua Fasami Peter.
Welcome back. Now the news continues in West Africa, where hundreds of demonstrators marched through Dakar to show their support for Senegalese President Macky Sall, who they say has been the victim of a media lynching. At the march, the Senegalese Minister of Higher Education and Research, Moussa Baldé, said that they are supporting President Sall because the truth is that he has built a new Senegal.
On doit le soutenir parce que il y a eu ces derniers temps un lynchage médiatique incroyable. Mais la vérité c'est que l'ingénieur bâtisseur Macky Sall, il a bâti un nouveau Sénégal, il a façonné un nouveau Sénégal. Et ce Sénégal-là, il restera pour toujours. Il n'a pas décidé de reporter les élections. Ce qu'il a dit, il y a une crise institutionnelle. À travers cette crise institutionnelle, il a dit nous allons rester pour que la lumière soit faite par rapport à tout ce qui est dit. Maintenant, une fois cela, ils vont organiser des élections transparentes et libres et inclusives. Il a dit.
Aujourd'hui, nous, en tant que Sénégalaises, en tant que Faticoises, en tant que femmes catholiques, je suis là aujourd'hui au nom de l'Église catholique, mais aujourd'hui, je suis là au nom de toutes les femmes du Sénégal pour dire merci. Merci au président de la République. Merci.
Namibia has urged Germany's President Frank-Walter Steinmeier to speed up talks on reparations for colonial-era genocide. President Steinmeier, who is in Windhoek to pay tribute to his counterpart Haig Gengab, who died on February 4th and is to be laid to rest today. Now, he was reminded during Saturday's memorial that Germany has yet to agree on reparations for the massacre of the Herero and Nama people from 1904 to 1908. In May 2021, Germany acknowledged that the killings by its troops amounted to genocide and has offered to fund development projects at 1.1 billion euros over 30 years. And now we'll move to North Africa, where a Tunisian court has sentenced prominent opposition figure Jawar Ben Mbarek to 6 months in prison after he criticized the 2022 parliamentary election. This was confirmed by his lawyer and sister Dalila Ben Mbarek. Ben Mbarek, a fierce critic of President Kais Saied and senior member of the Salvation Front opposition coalition, was detained last year on suspicion of conspiracy against the state. Lawyer Dalila Ben Mbarek also said that she would go on a hunger strike to protest against judicial injustices. Now, in other news from around the world, former U.S. President Donald Trump cruised to a lightning victory on Saturday in South Carolina's Republican primary, defeating rival Nikki Haley in her home state and continuing his march to the nomination and a White House rematch with President Joe Biden in November. Trump completed a sweep of the first 4 major nominating contests, converting a year of blockbuster polls into a likely insurmountable lead going into the Super Tuesday 15-state voting bonanza in 10 days. Trump had already won Iowa by 30 points and New Hampshire by 10, while a dispute in Nevada led to the real estate tycoon running unopposed in the first official contest in the western United States.
November 5th, and we're going to look at Joe Biden, and we're going to look him right in the eye. He's destroying our country, and we're going to say, Joe, you're fired. Get out. Get out, Joe. You're fired. We love our country. We love it dearly. We're going to fight for our country. We're going to fight for our rights. We're not going to let this go on because it is not sustainable by any country. You cannot let, I believe, the number by the time we get him out, and remember the date, November 5th, it's going to be the most important date perhaps in the history of our country. But now there's a spirit that I have never seen. We ran 2 great races, but there's never been a spirit like this, and I just want to say that I have never seen the Republican Party so unified as it is right now.
American and British forces carried out a fresh wave of strikes on Saturday against 18 Houthi targets in Yemen, following weeks of unrelenting attack on Red Sea shipping by the Iran-backed rebels. Now, according to a joint statement, the strike specifically targeted 18 Houthi targets across 8 locations in Yemen, including weapons storage facilities, attack drones, air defense systems, radars, and a helicopter. The statement was co-signed by Australia, Bahrain, Denmark, Canada, and Netherlands, and also the New Zealand, who gave unspecified support to the new round of strikes, the second this month and fourth since the rebels began their attacks on ships in the region.
في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت من خلالها سفينة نفطية تورمتور الأمريكية في خليج عدن بعدد من الصواريخ البحرية المناسبة، فيما قام سلاح الجو المسير باستهداف عدد من السفن الأمريكية الحربية في البحر الأحمر بعدد من الطائرات المسيرة. تؤكد القوات المسلحة اليمنية على أنها ستواجه التصعيد الأمريكي البريطاني بالمزيد من العمليات العسكرية النوعية ضد كافة الأهداف المعادية في البحرين الأحمر والعربي دفاعاً عن بلدنا وشعبنا وأمتنا. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية ومعها كل أبناء الشعب اليمني العظيم مستمرة في تنفيذ واجباتها الدينية والأخلاقية والإنسانية تجاه الشعب الفلسطيني، وأن عملياتها العسكرية لن تتوقف إلا بتوقف العدوان.
Families of hostages held by Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip and their supporters held a rally in Tel Aviv to demand their release. Some 250 hostages were taken during the Hamas attacks in October last year, of whom 130 are still in Gaza, although Israel says about 30 are thought to be dead. According to official Israeli figures, Hamas's attack on rural communities and military posts bordering the Gaza Strip left at least 1,160 people dead. Israel's air, land, and sea war against Hamas in retaliation has killed at least 29,606 people.
Government has a different perspective about the entire country, about security and the war, and I understand that they cannot have the same opinion as the families. It's okay. They have their role and the families have their own role, but they must do their role and we support them, the families, I mean. They must shout as loudly as possible. They must remind the government that this cannot be forgotten. This is one of the main goals of this war, to defeat Hamas and bring back the hostages.
This is a hard situation, and I believe that every country all over the world wants that the the people come back and be safe.
Now in business, CBN has released a revised regulatory and supervisory guidelines for bureau de change operators in Nigeria. Some of the key points include bureau de change now have tiers. That's tier 1 requires a minimum capital of 2 billion naira. This is for a national license, while tier 2 has a minimum capital requirement of 500 million naira. These can only operate within one state and are allowed a maximum of 3 branches. A shareholder cannot own more than one BDC, thus preventing people from holding more than one license. BDCs can now serve as agents to disburse funds on behalf of international monetary transfer operators. Only amounts less than $500 can be received in cash, while larger amounts should be deposited in bank accounts. For foreigners, a card will be issued. Essentially, BDCs will now be able to issue Naira cards. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. We told you that Edo Deputy Governor Shaibu has said he's not afraid of impeachment. We also told you that hundreds have marched in support of Senegal's president in Dakar. And you finally heard that Tunisia's opposition figure has been sentenced to 6 months jail. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.